So we're going to be downloading R in the RStudio environment for this TD. Now technically you can run R code in Visual Studio Code, but I just wouldn't recommend it just because you can't run chunks of code in Visual Studio like you can in RStudio. But if you prefer not to download anything, you can also run R on Google Colab, which is an environment we used in a previous TD. Just make sure it's through collab.to/R so that you'll be able to code using an R runtime. And guys, I couldn't care less on what you use for this TD, whatever you're comfortable using, but I'll guide you guys on RStudio just because it's the one I'm most comfortable with. So what you're going to do to download R is to navigate to the link I have provided along with the materials labeled Download R. And once you're here, it should look like this, and click on the one that matches your operating system. I have Windows, so I'm just going to click that. And we're downloading this for the first time, so we're going to click Install R for the first time. And for Mac users, I'm going to go back and navigate back to the previous page so I can walk you through it. So click on Download for Mac, and then you'll be given two options to download here. So if you didn't know, Apple had switched from Intel processors to their own M1 and M2 chips a while back. I think late 2020, maybe sometime 2021. So depending on what your computer has, it's one of these, and which you'll be downloading. If you don't know which one it is off the top of your head, maybe I can link some documentation for Mac users to identify which one they have. So when you find out which one your computer has, go ahead and click on the appropriate link, and it will start automatically downloading. You're gonna have to wait for the setup to fully download. So let me go back here, install for the first time, and then download for Windows. Okay, we just gotta wait for this circle to fully load. Okay, so I thought I'd be able to show you the setup through my screen record, but for whatever reason, it's not letting me screen record it. So I'll be able to tell you the steps for you to follow along, but I won't be able to provide any visualizations for it. I'm sorry. But once it's finishing downloading, you're going to navigate to the location where it's been downloaded, and you just click on either the downloads icon on Google Chrome, or you go to your file explorer and manually search for the location it's been downloaded to. But when you double click it, it'll pop up that will ask for permission to make changes to your computer, and you're just going to go ahead and click yes, and then it's going to ask you which default language is okay, and you should just stick with the default and just click OK. And then you're going to click next, and then next again to accept all the default locations, and then click next, and then click next again to accept the default options. You'll basically want to click next until a loading bar appears, and then you'll get a confirmation page that says that setup has finished, and then there would be a finish button. That page, you're good to click finish. But now we're going to download RStudio next. Now it's very important to note that we had just installed R, which is the programming language software. But this isn't to be confused with RStudio, which is the environment used to interact with R. So what we're going to be doing is installing R, and we're going to navigate to the second link in our materials labeled Download RStudio. And when I clicked that link, mine had automatically downloaded the setup for me, but if it didn't for you, you can always download it on this page. And once you get here, you can ignore the first step, we've already done that. And the nice thing about this site is that it already had identified what operating system we're using. So for Windows users, it'll tell you to download RStudio for Windows, and then for Mac users, it'll show you the correct one to download. So go ahead and click the download button, and we're going to wait for this to finish downloading. But once it does, go ahead and double click the setup download, and then it's going to ask you to allow it to make changes to your computer. You're going to hit yes, and then you're going to click next. And then for me, I like to install things in my desktop folder so that it's easier to navigate back to it later for whatever reason. So I'm just going to click browse, and then in the pop-up window, I'm going to select desktop. Now it's important to note that if you have Windows, they like to make things confusing by having locations under it with the same name as the ones in your computer already. So what I'm trying to say is, don't get your desktop folder confused with your OneDrive desktop folder. Okay? And then you're going to click OK, and then you're going to click Next once you finish selecting the folder you want to install RStudio in. And then you're going to click Install. You'll know it's done once the loading bar completes, and then it sends you to a page that says RStudio has been installed, and then you can click the Finish button. And then to open up the program, you can just search for RStudio in your Start search bar for Windows, or if you're a Mac user, you can use your Spotlight or Finder window. But when you go to open it, it's going to tell you that RStudio requires an existing installation of R, and we already have that, so we can stick with the default option and click OK. And for me, it asks if I wanted to enable automated crash reporting to RStudio. You can just select this option if you want to, but for me, I declined it since I noticed that programs that do this take a little bit longer to close when it stops responding or crashes, since it's trying to make that report. And if a window appears that says Firewall has blocked some of RStudio's functions, you can just click Allow. Okay, that's all for setup. We can start with the basics inside the RStudio environment next.